What happens when the world decides it's done making space for Brits? In 2025, that question has a brutal answer. Countries that once begged for British workers, students and retirees are now pulling the plug. Quiet bans, new walls, and rules designed to block, not welcome. This isn't about travel delays or paperwork headaches. It's about governments making one thing clear. Britain's global privilege has expired. We're counting down 10 more countries that have just made it nearly impossible for UK citizens to move in. And this new list will shock you. Number 10. South Korea. South Korea used to be a fast-track destination for British teachers, digital nomads and tech professionals. But in 2025, that welcome mat has been yanked out from under them. In March, the government passed the Foreign Workforce Optimization Act, tightening visa categories across the board. British citizens applying for teaching, E2, business, D8, or job-seeking, D10, visas are now subject to longer screening periods, higher financial thresholds, and a new regional quota system. Seoul and Busan have effectively paused new UK entries entirely, redirecting slots to countries with stronger trade ties. There's also a subtle shift in tone. Officials now require proof of local benefit for most work permits. That means Brits must prove their presence directly boosts South Korea's economy. Something previously assumed, not tested. On top of that, cultural integration requirements have been raised. Even short-term applicants are being asked to demonstrate Korean language competency and community intent, criteria that screen out casual expats. South Korea hasn't banned British immigration outright, but they've made it slow, expensive and uncertain, and for many Brits, that's as good as a no. Number 9. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia once rolled out the red carpet for British professionals, engineers, consultants, teachers, you name it. But in 2025, that red carpet's been rolled back with little warning. As part of its new National Employment Shield program, Saudi Arabia is cutting back sharply on foreign hiring, starting with countries that don't offer reciprocal opportunities. And yes, the UK made that list. Here's what changed. British citizens now face a cap on total work permits issued each quarter. Once that limit is hit, applications are either frozen or redirected. Industries like oil and gas, which used to absorb thousands of Brits, are being reshaped by strict Saudization quotas. Companies must prove they've exhausted all local options before even glancing at a foreign. Even more frustrating, British applicants now fall under the Tier 3 processing group, which means longer waits, more paperwork, and frequent rejections without explanation. And those multi-entry business visas so many consultants relied on? Revoked across the board unless backed by a Saudi sponsor with special clearance. Saudi Arabia is not slamming the door shut completely, but they've made one thing clear in 2025. British workers are no longer the default option. Number 8. Vietnam. Vietnam used to be one of Southeast Asia's most relaxed destinations for British citizens. Affordable living, easy visas, and a booming English education market made it a magnet for young professionals and retirees alike. But in 2025, the rules have flipped. Under the newly introduced Immigration Security Reform Act, Vietnam has reclassified the UK as a high-risk administrative partner. That's government speak for more checks, more hoops, and fewer approvals. For British citizens, this means short-term visas now require proof of outbound flights, confirmed accommodation, and financial documentation up front. Long-term visas, especially the once popular teaching permits, are being delayed or denied unless the applicant has Vietnamese qualifications or verified in-country sponsorship. The education sector, once flooded with British teachers, has been hit hardest. Schools now face stiff penalties for hiring foreigners without direct ministry approval. Even private language centres are being audited for Western hiring bias. Why the sudden shift? Officials say it's about reducing dependency on foreign labour and protecting local opportunities. But off the record, some suggest it's also about rebalancing diplomatic leverage with Western countries post-Brexit. Either way, Vietnam's message is clear. Spontaneous British arrivals are no longer welcome. If you're not bringing something exceptional to the table, you're not getting in. Number 7. Portugal. Portugal used to be a dream destination for Brits. Beaches, cheap wine, and English-speaking locals made it a go-to spot for retirement, remote work, and long stays. But in 2025, that dream has hit a wall, and the UK is now facing serious pushback. It started quietly. In February, the Portuguese government ended automatic golden visa renewals for British citizens, citing abuse of the system and housing inflation in cities like Lisbon and Porto. Then came the bigger shift. The Residency Access Reform Bill, passed in March, which removed the UK from Portugal's list of low-risk applicants. Now, British citizens applying for residency must prove they contribute directly to the Portuguese economy, either through high-level employment, real estate development that benefits locals, or government-approved investment. Retirees and freelancers? They're now subject to minimum income requirements, nearly double last year's threshold. Digital nomads haven't been spared either. The once popular D7 visa now requires a notarized work history, Portuguese tax registration, and even evidence of cultural integration plans. Something most casual expats never needed before. It's not a total ban, but for British applicants, Portugal in 2025 feels a lot less friendly and a lot more like a gated community with strict guest lists. Number 6. Kenya. For decades, Kenya welcomed British expats with open arms. From retirees settling in coastal towns to NGO workers and entrepreneurs setting up shop in Nairobi, the UK had a deep footprint in Kenya's expat community. But in 2025, that relationship has cooled. And quickly. In April, Kenya's Ministry of Interior unveiled the Fair Migration and Residency Act, which introduced new quotas, restrictions, and documentation requirements targeting nationals from former colonial powers, including Britain. One of the most controversial changes? A full suspension of new Class D work permits for UK citizens in sectors like media, education, and tourism. These industries were once dominated by British applicants but are now being prioritised for Kenyan nationals and regional partners within the East African community. Another hit came in the real estate sector. British nationals now face a 40% foreign ownership tax on new property purchases and must obtain special clearance for long-term leases. That's effectively shut down the coastal retirement pipeline that brought thousands of Brits to places like Mombasa and Malindi. Kenya hasn't closed its borders entirely, but for Brits, 2025 marks the end of automatic access and the start of a more cautious, complicated relationship. Number 5. Malaysia. Malaysia was once a quiet favourite for British expats. It offered city life in Kuala Lumpur, beach escapes in Penang, and the comfort of widespread English fluency. But in 2025, the welcome has worn thin, and British nationals are now facing some of the toughest restrictions in Southeast Asia. In January, Malaysia revised its Malaysia My Second Home MM2H program, which had been a retirement and long-stay visa magnet for Brits. The new rules require a minimum monthly offshore income of $10,000, 0 cents, liquid assets over $350,000, 0 cents, and local fixed deposits that must remain untouched for 5 years. That alone priced out a huge chunk of the UK's middle-class expat crowd. But the changes didn't stop there. British applicants for professional work visas now fall under enhanced scrutiny due to what officials describe as disproportionate historical privilege. Companies must prove Malaysians can't fill the job. And even then, approvals are slow and unpredictable. To make things worse, immigration checkpoints have begun quietly flagging frequent UK travellers. Some Brits report being denied re-entry without explanation after short visa runs, a common tactic used by digital nomads. Malaysia hasn't banned British immigration outright, but between the costs, the delays, and the new attitude, the door has definitely been pushed halfway shut. Number 4. New Zealand. New Zealand has long been viewed as a natural escape for British citizens. Stunning landscapes, cultural familiarity, and a shared language made it feel like a softer, sunnier version of home. But in 2025, even the land of the long white cloud is pulling away. In March, New Zealand's government announced a full overhaul of its immigration framework under the Workforce Resilience Act, and British nationals found themselves bumped from priority categories across nearly every visa class. The skilled migrant category, once the main entry point for UK professionals, now favours applicants with direct ties to the Pacific region. Brits must meet higher points thresholds, demonstrate advanced credentials in critically short-staffed fields, and prove a long-term commitment to staying in regional zones outside of Auckland and Wellington. Even the working holiday visa, a rite of passage for young Brits, now comes with fewer slots and stricter age limits. The cut-off age was lowered to 28, and applicants must show travel insurance, round-trip flights, and evidence of at least $6,000, 0 cents in savings. Why the shift? Officials cited housing shortages, job protection, and a growing sentiment that migration should serve New Zealand's national needs first. Unfortunately for the UK, that no longer includes historic ties or Commonwealth nostalgia. In 2025, the Kiwi welcome has been replaced by a clipboard and a calculator. And if you're British, the numbers might not work in your favour. Number 3. Ireland. For years, Ireland was the easiest escape route for Brits. No visa, no drama, and the comfort of a shared history. But in 2025, even that back door has been sealed tighter than ever before. It started with the Immigration and Border Reform Bill, passed quietly in January. For the first time in decades, British citizens planning to stay in Ireland longer than 90 days must now apply through standard immigration pathways. No exceptions, no shortcuts. The change is partly about EU pressure. Ireland is under growing scrutiny to align its border policies more closely with the rest of the European bloc. But it's also about infrastructure. Rising rents, hospital overcrowding, and pressure on public services have sparked political backlash, and the UK has become an easy target. Now, British citizens must provide detailed proof of income, secure employment contracts, or evidence of higher education enrolment before even stepping off the plane. Pensioners looking to retire in Ireland must show 5 years' worth of financial independence, including health insurance and housing arrangements. Enforcement has stepped up too. Immigration officers are conducting random ID checks, and overstayers are being tracked and fined, something unheard of just a few years ago. Ireland hasn't broken the common travel area, but it's rewritten the fine print. And in 2025, Brits aren't being waved through, they're being questioned. Number 2. India. Few countries have shared as deep and complicated a relationship with the UK as India. But in 2025, that history has become more burden than bond, and British citizens are now feeling the consequences. In April, India's Ministry of External Affairs activated a new policy under the Reciprocity Enforcement Protocol, designed specifically to match other countries' treatment of Indian nationals. And unsurprisingly, the UK was at the top of that list. Effective immediately, all major visa categories for British citizens, including student, work, business and medical, now come with stricter pre-clearance requirements. Applicants must submit detailed 5-year financial records, proof of accommodation from verified Indian sources, and, in some states, demonstrate familiarity with local languages. Even tourism has become complicated. New electronic visa applications are being capped monthly for UK citizens, and turnaround times have doubled. British tour operators are already reporting cancellations due to visa uncertainty. And for those eyeing India as a business opportunity, think again. Startup visas now require in-country sponsorship from a registered Indian partner, as well as a 90-day background verification period that includes tax disclosures and company audits. India is no longer trying to maintain old diplomatic courtesies. In 2025, it's sending a message. If you make things harder for our people, we'll return the favour. For British citizens, that means fewer privileges, more red tape, and a much colder reception. Number 1. Germany used to be one of the most accessible countries for British professionals and students. Post-Brexit, it was seen as the EU's practical doorway, stable, efficient, and open for business. In a sweeping move under the new EU Labour Integrity Directive, Germany has restructured its visa allocation process, placing the UK at the bottom of its non-EU priority list. British citizens now face mandatory employer sponsorships, strict income thresholds, and for many categories, German language certification at B1 level or higher. That's a huge blow for freelancers, creatives, and younger job seekers without language fluency or formal contracts. The student visa system hasn't been spared either. New policies require UK applicants to submit notarized proof of funds covering their entire degree up front in a German bank account, something previously waived for Commonwealth applicants. And for those already in Germany, renewals are getting harder. Many Brits on long-term permits have reported being asked to justify their continued stay, with some quietly encouraged to leave or consider relocation options. What's fueling this shift? A growing push within Germany to reduce foreign pressure on housing and healthcare, and to reward countries with reciprocal entry policies. Britain doesn't make that list anymore. In 2025, Germany hasn't just tightened the rules, it's rewritten them, and for UK citizens that means starting from the very back of the line. The global message is clear. This is more than just a few extra forms or delayed approvals. What we're seeing is a global recalibration. Countries are protecting their borders, their economies, and their people. And Britain, once first in line, is now waiting outside with everyone else. Retirement plans? Postponed. Job offers? Revoked. Student dreams? Frozen. This is what happens when old privilege meets a new world order. The age of automatic access is gone. And what replaces it? Higher standards, stricter filters, and a brutal dose of reality. If you're a Brit thinking about a fresh start abroad, double-check your path, because in 2025, fewer and fewer nations are leaving the light on. Stay sharp, stay informed, and if this hit closer to home than expected, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button and don't miss what's coming next.